Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So let us go to the prison house of Kamsa. I mean, not stay there, but some of you may have been to Vrindavan. How many here have not been to Vrindavan? Okay, a few. Generally, when you go to Vrindavan, there are certain places everyone goes to. But some of you may have also been to the prison house of Kamsa. There's a very, very beautiful temple, long history. Dinabandhu claims that some local people claim that the real place where the prison house of Kamsa was is different. And he takes tour groups to that place. Very simple place. Doesn't have all the fanfare and glamour, but a very beautiful place where elder Brahmins and others consider this is the prison house of Kamsa. And there's nice deity, simple arrangement. And the government built a fantastic other temple with very gorgeous paintings on the ceiling and all over the place. And then you go around and around and they take you through the prison house. So the prison house is the place where Vasudeva and Devaki were kept. We heard that from the drama yesterday. Kamsa ordered that they would be put in prison, etc. And when the 8th child of Devaki was in the womb of Devaki, Kamsa knew, because she looked more effulgent than ever before, and he was determined to kill that 8th child. The demigods, there's symmetry in the Bhagavatam. Before Krishna's appearance, the demigods headed by Lord Brahma went to the shore of the Milk Ocean and appealed to Kshirodakshayi Vishnu to appear in this world, to relieve the earth of the burden of demoniac kings. Vishnu consented. He came as the 8th child of Devaki. And the demigods knew. So there's Devaki in the prison house, and the demigods came. Now there's a similar symmetry towards the end of Krishna's pastimes. In Canto 11, Chapter 7, Krishna is alone in a remote place in Dwarka. The demigods come and offer their prayers again. 3 times, at least, to appeal when he's in the womb and before he departs. Again, beautiful prayers in each place. And they thank Lord Vishnu, or Krishna, for fulfilling his promise to protect them, to relieve the earth of her difficulties, and glorify him in various ways, and then say, if you so desire, you may now return to your eternal abode. The stage was set. This is just part of the flow, because Krishna reciprocates with everyone. We heard yesterday evening. Just like the sun shines everywhere. Now, it's probably difficult for some of you because the sun's shining right in your eyes. The sun shines everywhere, but according to receptivity, this is Kunti's prayers, verse 29. We'll see it again this evening. According according to Kunti's prayers, different persons have a different receptivity. The Acharyas speak of a sunstone. The sunstone is something like the Suryakant gem. The sunstone doesn't just reflect light, but it assimilates light within the stone. So you can put that sunstone somewhere in darkness and it's light like the sun, because the light of the sun is assimilated within the sunstone. So the sunstone has that receptivity of sunlight. Blind people, they're unaffected by the sun shining or not shining because they're blind. Thieves, they like when the sun goes down. And the owls like when the sun goes down. And the Chakravaka birds like when the sun comes up. So the sun is one entity, shining and not shining is not partial to anyone. So living entities feel differently towards Krishna. So he's simply reciprocating in a loving way, even with those who are his enemies, and even with those who are the demigods, and even with those who are whatever their relationship with Krishna is. So this is a scene, reading from Canto 10, Chapter 2, the demigods' prayers to Krishna in the womb. This is the first of their prayers. O Lord, you never deviate from your vow, which is always perfect, because whatever you decide is perfectly correct and cannot be stopped by anyone. Being present in three phases of cosmic manifestation, creation, maintenance, annihilation, you are the supreme truth. Indeed, unless one is completely truthful, one cannot achieve your favor, which, therefore, cannot be achieved by hypocrites. You are the active principle, the real truth in all the ingredients of creation, and therefore you are known as Antaryami, the inner force. You are equal to everyone, and your instructions apply for everyone for all time. You are the beginning of all truth, therefore, offering our obeisances, we surrender unto you. Kindly give us protection. Of course, he's appeared to give them protection. They need not ask for protection, but that's their relationship. They're being harassed. And those who they're protecting are being harassed. So they're asking for the Lord's protection. I'll read just a little bit, it's a long purport. The demigods, or devotees, know perfectly well that the Supreme Personality Godhead is the true substance, whether within this material world or in the spiritual world. Srimad Bhagavatam begins therefore with the words, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Satyam Param Dhimahi. Vasudeva, Krishna, is the Param Satyam, the Supreme Truth. The Supreme Truth can be approached or understood by the Supreme Method, as declared by the Supreme Truth. Bhaktya mama vijanati yavanyasyasmi tattvataha. Bhakti, or devotional service, is the only way to understand the absolute truth. For protection, therefore, the demigods surrender to the Supreme Truth, not to the relative truth. There are persons who worship various demigods, but the Supreme Truth, Krishna, declares in Bhagavad Gita, Antavatu palam teshan tad bhavantyalpamedasam. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Worship of demigods may be useful for a limited time, but the result is antavat, perishable. This material world is impermanent. The demigods are impermanent, and the benedictions derived from the demigods are also impermanent, whereas the living entity is eternal. Nityo nityanam, chaitanash chaitananam. Every living entity, therefore, must search for eternal happiness, not temporary happiness. The words satyam param dhimahi indicate that one should search for the absolute truth, not the relative truth. While offering prayers to the Supreme Personality Godhead, Nrsingadev Prahlad Maharaj said, Bala Shaneha Sharanam Pitarao Nrsinga Nartasya Chagodam Udvanti Manjato Now. Generally, it is understood that the protectors for a child are his parents. But this is not actually the fact. The real protector is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If neglected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a child, despite the presence of his parents, will suffer. And a diseased person, despite all medical help, will die. In this material world, there is a struggle for existence. Men have invented many means for protection, but these are useless if the Supreme Personality Godhead rejects them. Therefore, the demigods purposely say, Satyatmakam tvam sharanam prapanaha. Real protection can be obtained from you, O Lord, and therefore we surrender unto you. Beg your pardon? I can't hear you. 7, 9, 19. The verse that I'm reading right now this morning, 10 to 26. Is that all right? Now the purport goes on, and it's discussing many things. It's a 5-page purport. But surrender, this is the first verse of the prayers. Surrender is a nice topic. That's their mood, the demigod's mood. I remember some years ago, Rabindra Swarup Prabhu gave an extended seminar in Gitanagari on the prayers of the demigods. It was real brilliant because he's a brilliant speaker. And the message that they speak, there's some consistency or symmetry in that they're describing the absolute truth, the different perspectives or realizations or understandings or features of the absolute truth. And some of the demigods, each of the demigods has a particular relationship. There's several sections where demigods are offering prayers. For example, when the demigods are offering prayers to Lord Nrsingadev, it gives their names, which demigod said which prayer. And one can tell something about the personality from the prayer, or one can tell something about the relationship with the personality of Godhead from their prayer. And so everyone has some demigods have a positive regard, but then unique according from demigod to demigod. And then in the spiritual realm, there's the Vaikuntha realm, and there's the Dwaraka, Mathura, and Braja realm. And within those realms, there's varieties. And amongst those varieties, there's sub-varieties, and every living entity has unique relationship with Krishna. This is the the refinement of Rupa Goswami's teaching, the science of rasa. There's a differentiation from different Vaishnavas about the relative position of Vaishnavas. This is just a little sharing. But Madhvacharya makes a distinction of the difference of different Vaishnavas in terms of their tendency to be fallible or to err. Rupa Goswami speaks of the differentiation of Vaishnavas in terms of their rasa with Krishna. And one can say, connecting this with the surrender topic, there are different ideas of what the expectation or the intention of someone when they're surrendering to Krishna. The demigods are surrendering to Krishna for protection. Now, they also have a duty on behalf of Krishna to protect. In part, they protect by providing necessities. That's part of protection. It's part of, like the parents of a child, they provide necessities. And there's other softer features besides, the material necessities of food, clothing, shelter, and those things. There's the character development that parents have as a regard for their children. And, giving them wholesome and keeping them protected from unwholesome association and all those things. Now, the demigods have a similar function. They're devotees. But they're not devotees. They're not in Vaikuntha because they have a controlling tendency, controlling over matter tendency. And so do we, because anyone who takes birth in this realm, it's the realm of passion. In the middle planetary region, it's mode of passion. Urdvam gachanti sattvasta, madhye tishtanti rajasa, aho gachanti tamasa. This is the middle planetary region where rajas pervades, passion, fruitive activity. Get something to enjoy. Enjoying mentality is very strong. And trying to increase one's capacity for enjoyment. That's this realm. And the demigods they have some controlling propensity, but it's a much more elevated mode of goodness controlling propensity. And they understand that they derive their capacity to do that from the Supreme Controller, the Absolute Truth. Therefore, they're seeking His protection when there's difficulty. And Kamsa and his associates, because Kamsa was very powerful. He commanded the subservience of so many kings. There's a very detailed explanation in Garga Samhita, very detailed explanation of how the various demons that became assistants in Kamsa's nefarious deeds were conquered by him. Some of them were very, very powerful kings, and he completely demolished them and left them standing and gave them one choice. You surrender to me or I'll kill you. So they understood he better surrender to Kamsa because he's so powerful. But they had similar demoniac spirit like him. So that he was very powerful. When Krishna killed Kamsa, it was a big deal. Because he had annihilated so many. He wasn't weak. And just one punch and he was finished. Krishna's all powerful. All powerful. Wasn't a small thing, just like a super judo punch or something. He didn't just knock him out, killed him. He's very powerful, very powerful. And the demigods knew it. So they knew that he Vishnu, has appeared in the womb of Devaki, and we want his protection of ourselves and those who are in our charge, the whole universe, a universe's worth of living entities. But so in addition to their service of controlling and protecting, they also have their regard towards the worshipable one, because they're elevated in knowledge. That is to say, the converse, ignorance has been removed by knowledge. They're vastly learned in the Vedas, starting with Brahma. He's the receiver of the whole Vedic knowledge. He's the propagator of Vedic knowledge to so many. So they knew the meaning. Not only he's going to be powerful and protect us, but he's the source of everything. And that's within the verse. Now this speaks of this position of truthfulness. I'll read it again. Unless one is completely truthful, one cannot achieve your favor, which therefore cannot be achieved by hypocrites. You are the active principle, the real truth, in all the ingredients of creation, and therefore you are known as Antaryami, the inner force. So here Prabhupada is speaking of the verse and the purport. The truth has different meanings, and the absolute truth has different meanings. The common sense of truth is as opposed to falsity. You don't speak lies, you speak the truth. That's one sense of truth. There's another sense of truth that's mentioned in the verse, and that's the fabric of everything. That which is the basis and support of everything. Truth. Another sense of truth is, as we find in Ramayana, Ram fastidiously would never deviate from the truth. So like the word of his father, for him as a son, is truth. It's the guiding force of my life. It's what I live for. What greater happiness can I find than upholding the word of my father, which is truth? The truth is abiding by your word. A truthful person abides by their word. That's another meaning of truth. And then yet a further meaning of truth is this absolute truth is, again, the basis and support of something is truth, and the absolute truth is the basis and support of everything. Just like Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita, that he is the basis and support of Brahman, Pratishta. He's the Pratishta of Brahman. He's the absolute truth which Brahman is resting upon, that from which everything comes. That's the absolute truth. So the demigods have all these understandings, and they feel connected. They're devotees, so they feel connected to that source. So naturally, when they have the opportunity to come before the personality of Godhead, they're expressing their relationship with him. We're connected to you because you're the basis and support of everything, and we understand your position to be like that. And here we are. Now, Krishna is still within the womb. But he's whether he's in the womb of Devaki, or he's living in Dwaraka, or he's a small child crawling in Vrindavan, or whatever. these different mysteries, that was our topic yesterday, these different mysteries about Krishna they remain mysteries to those who are not devotees. The demigods have some understanding of the mysteries of the mysterious Supreme Lord. And to the demigods, the way that Krishna interacts with the residents of Vrindavan remains mysterious also. When Brahma has this experience of visiting Krishna in Vrindavan, and to test the supremacy of Krishna, he tests his mystic powers against Krishna's mystic powers, and Krishna wins. When he sees the unlimitedness of the power of Krishna, he offers beautiful prayers, one of which is to appreciate the exalted nature of the resident of Vrindavan. He's bewildered. How intelligent is Brahma? We can't even imagine. He not only knows how to, build a projector or an amplification system, or, send rockets into space, or, NASA, or whatever it is. He can build the universe. What's his technology? What's his engineering capacity? Take anything within this material world, and the complexity is astounding. And he knows how to build one. In fact, he rebuilds it every day of his life. How intelligent is Brahma? It's astounding. We can't even begin to understand. He knows the length and breadth of all the Vedas. All the Vedas. Yet when he sees what he sees from Krishna's display in Vrindavan, he's bewildered. And he's bewildered in addition by the intimacy that the residents of Vrindavan have. So he prays that may I whom, at the top of the universe of intelligence and power and everything else, you can't get any higher than that within the universe. He prays to take his birth somehow in Vrindavan, to catch the dust from the feet of the resident of Vrindavan. Very similar prayer as Uddhava's prayer. Now, Krishna hasn't performed those pastimes. He's still in the womb of Devaki. So they're understanding his majesty, and they're yet to experience his intimacy. We find repeated examples in Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. As he's killing demons in Vrindavan, they're in the sky watching. They had interplanetary travel. They could move around, no problem. And they were watching, and when they saw the wonderful activities, they would shower flowers and beat on drums and dance and celebrate. There's a really nice passage in the 10th canto when the gopis are pacifying Mother Jasoda because Krishna's late. He's been herding the cows and he's not come back in time. Mother's there, she's anxious. Where's my son and what's going on? So the gopis pacify her, don't worry, he'll be back soon. They somehow have the ability to see Krishna's pastimes by remote television. They went just at the end of the day, they went to take their bath in the river Jamuna. And then they were sporting on the banks of the river Jamuna. They'll be back soon. And as they were coming back, the demigods who were watching Krishna's wonderful activities from the sky, they descended and fell before your son to offer prayers. But don't worry, he'll be back soon. And he'll come back with the blessings and benedictions of the demigods. So feel yourself fortunate. He'll be back soon. So the demigods are even, at least remotely, observing and celebrating how wonderful are Krishna's pastimes. And he hasn't taken birth yet. He's still. But so the majesty, the Aishvarya feature of the Lord is being spoken of, and that being the basis of their surrender. He's a worthy person to surrender to because he's all-powerful. And with his all-powerfulness, please give us protection. And then when Krishna shows his Vrindavan Leela, they're just overwhelmed. They understand its greatness, but they're not eligible yet to enter into those pastimes because they have their own mindset, their own disposition, being controlling demigods. So entrance into I'll end with this, entrance into Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan is very special. One requires the favor, the direct mercy of those eternal associates of Krishna in his intimate pastimes in Vrindavan to gain entrance. Not just by, the kind of knowledge, the kind of knowledge that we find the demigods describing, because they're demigods, they understand what they understand, is supremacy. And that helps us have the proper regard for Krishna's very intimate pastimes. But to enter into those intimate pastimes requires very special favor. That's Lord Chaitanya's gift. And the further teachings of our Rupa Goswami and other great acharyas that teach us that method. The Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very profound, and we're honoring today, throughout the day, in different ways, the appearance of Lord Krishna. So we'll see you back again, I guess, this evening. We have our evening activities. Shri Krishna Janmashtami ki jai. Any discussion?
So you told that there's a different divisions of a devotee. Based on the division, there's a different level of saying, kindly give me protection. Kindly give me protection to Krishna.
The demigods, I'm qualifying your question or modifying your question, I guess, because the demigods are praying like that, but not everyone is praying like that. Not all of the devotees are praying like that.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
So, yes. So, same thing again. So, there's a different level of devotees and according to different categorization, each categories of devotee has a different way to say, kindly give me protection. So, demigods, and you told that there are different levels of truth. There is a truth, who speak truth, and there is absolute truth, this complete truth, basis of Brahman. So, demigods are aware of the completeness of that absolute truth. However, the Vaikuntavasis, let me ask this question. So, is Dwarkavasi knows he is a complete absolute truth or not?
They have more understanding than those in Dwarka, than those in Mathura, and certainly those in Vrindavan. They have an understanding, but it's not they also have a relationship with him in other ways. And those other ways, there's an intimacy that eclipses to some degree his divinity.
Okay.
There's an intimacy in Dwaraka that eclipses to some degree his intimacy.
Sure.
I mean, his supremacy.
Supremacy, yes. So it kinds of bewildering because demigod knows the complete absoluteness of the absolute truth, and they are knowing whom they are praying to. In that sense, Krishna should give the complete protection to the person who knows the absolute truth, in comparison to the person, although they're intimate, but they don't know the absoluteness of the absolute truth.
Yes, it's bewildering.
Chooses to bewilder, or he is bewildered?
He's reciprocating with everyone, including those that don't choose to see him as the Supreme. They choose to see him how they see him.
How about in Vrindavan? Does it
That's
choose?
what I mean. Mother Yasoda and Nanda, for example, they don't see him as the Supreme. He shows he's Supreme. They don't see him as Supreme. They pray to Narayan. When Nanda Maharaj prays to Krishna, Nanda Maharaj is being swallowed by a big serpent. You know the pastime. The elders, he calls out for help. The elders come, they start whacking away at the serpent, even with burning embers, whacking, the serpent keeps swallowing. He calls for Krishna to protect him. No, when he calls for Krishna to protect him, he's thinking of the words of Gargamuni. When death is arriving, he's thinking of the words of Gargamuni. Where am I going to get protection? So Gargamuni said, this child of yours will have powers like Narayan. He doesn't see him as the personality of Godhead. He has somehow invested with special powers. And he's demonstrated it previously. Krishna.
That Krishna is in control. He chooses, he wants to, he can do whatever he wants.
Yes, and he reciprocates with the regard that others have for him.
Of Yogamaya in function, because
of course Yogamaya functioning.
Because Krishna wants to do everything. That's why he's designing Yogamaya to do something for him.
It's not. I don't know where you're going with this. It's a complicated question, but there's Krishna, there's Yogamaya, and there's living entity, and Krishna is reciprocating with living entity through the medium of Yogamaya or his internal potency, or sometimes our acharyas use the phrase Leela Shakti as almost synonymous with Yogamaya, and so he's performing pastimes. And his energies facilitate the pastimes. And then sometimes, and it's just an ever-changing circumstance. As Leela Shakti is moving, as Yogamaya is moving, and Krishna is reciprocating loving dealings, and the river keeps moving.
Sure.
They get bewildered, and then they get unbewildered.
Thank you.
It's just different emotions facilitated by Krishna's potencies.
Thank you.
So what's the problem? What's behind your question?
The problem is that let's don't go to the living entities. Let's just stay.
I can't hear you.
Let's just stay in Vrindavan. If we don't look at the Vibhinamshas, but the real Vrajavasis, where Krishna seems to be bewildered. That I'm bewildered. I asked the same question to B. Krishna Maharaj last week. B. Krishna Maharaj, yeah. And Krishna seems to be like, my friends are going into the Bakasura. He gets bewildered. And then
he gets unbewildered.
That means he's using Yogamaya.
Of course.
Because
he's appreciating how wonderful is my Yogamaya.
He's like a puppet. He knows that he's getting bewildered.
But Yogamaya has her own, she enjoys Krishna's enjoyment. And on that particular example, there's very beautiful commentary where not only Krishna is bewildered, but he's amazed at the action of his own Yogamaya potency, which only acts according to his indication, but he's amazed by the action of his own Yogamaya potency. Like, there's Satya Sankalpa Shakti, which means Krishna doesn't have to do anything. He just desires anything and it happens. That's just Satya Sankalpa Shakti. So, Krishna was desiring the cowherd boys not enter the mouth of Aghasura, and they did. Whoa. That's a contradiction. He's got such a Sankalpa Shakti he didn't want, and they did. And he realized, he was appreciating, oh, my Yogamaya potency is so fantastic. So I could have this emotion of feeling bewildered. They're going into the mouth. So, then the river kept moving. Yogamaya is facilitating the relationship with the cowherd boys, but it's also reciprocating relationship with Krishna so he can experience varieties of emotion. Rasa Vaisaha, it's unlimited. It's unlimited. So wait a minute, was Yogamaya acting against Krishna's volition or with Krishna's volition? You can say either way. She was nourishing Krishna's happiness. That's what she was doing. And the happiness of the cowherd boys or the rest of the pastime could happen. It's a flow, like a river.
Finishing it off. It's a flow. But does Krishna Krishna knows this blueprint of this?
Krishna is omniscient. There's never a time when Krishna doesn't know anything. He knows everything.
Then what's the question of enjoying the pastime?
You know, you can be situated in thinking Krishna doesn't enjoy his pastimes if you like. He enjoys knowing and he enjoys not knowing, and he's all-knowing. It sounds contradictory, but that's the Sarup Shakti of Krishna. And if you want, the mind is a binary processor. It's either a 1 or a 0. And if it's this, then it's not that. If it's that, it's not this. So if you want, with your mind, to understand the inconceivableness of Krishna Sarup Shakti, good luck. Because it's not going to be possible. So how are you going to be happy? By recognizing you're not going to understand the inconceivable. Everything is under Krishna's control. He's always omniscient. And part of that is there's lapses by his own potencies where it seems to us as if he doesn't know, but he's all-knowing. He's enjoying an emotion that's facilitated by his potencies, that's all under his control. There's never a time when he doesn't know, there's never a time when he's not the controller, including those perplexing moments when it seems he doesn't know, and his potencies are moving according to other than his will. It's nourishing his enjoyment. Yes, Subal.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. You read and explained about the prayers of the demigods, who in the explanation is that they're highly qualified mixed devotees. And I wanted to ask you about this dynamic that happens in this level of devotees, mixed devotees.
Which devotees?
Mixed. That although, just like the demigods, you are acknowledging and praying and taking shelter of Krishna, asking for protection.
Yes.
There is the dynamic that could happen that you forget everything and you create a big disturbance in the pastimes or in the society of devotees. An example, Indra.
It happens.
How and why?
How?
Yes.
Well, facilitating the potency of Krishna is how, and why is because They have mixed aspirations. It has everything to do with intention, or you could say it has everything to do with their connection, and the connection is mixed. So when there's a mixed connection, it's sometimes and sometimes. That's why. And how is Krishna facilitates? Every living entity, at every moment. Yayatamam prapadyante. Even bad people, Krishna reciprocates. It's like this example that we just mentioned this morning. You know, the sun shines equally everywhere. And it's not partiality that the sun, the experience of the sun is different. So, Krishna, that's the how, and then there's the why. The regard living entities have for Krishna, that's why. And it can change. When you're mixed, it changes. On this side, any of our ladies would like to, or anybody on that side? Okay. Hare Krishna. That's it. One more.
Just a theoretical question. There is this verse that nobody can commit as much, like chanting the holy name of Krishna once is so powerful that a person cannot even commit that many sins that one chanting of Krishna can eradicate. So in the pastime of Chota Haridas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that for a person, in that order of life, the only way of purification is he has to leave his body. So I was just, I'm just theoretically considering, it looks a little bit contradictory.
Yeah. It's a pastime. No problem. He could have said, but he didn't. Just go to him and tell him to chant Hare Krishna and everything is going to be nice. He could have said that. He was teaching something. What was he teaching? A person in the renounced order must be strict. Specific with regard to female association. Person in the renounced order must be strict. That was his emphasis in that case. Now there's a higher emphasis. Chant Hare Krishna. Take care of everything. He was teaching something. And he was using his own devotee as the object, the medium through which he was teaching that something. A person in the renounced order must be very strict. Very strict, as he was strict. Do we have anything online? Looks like no. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.